Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Susie Jane Designs. In today's video, I'm super excited to share it with you guys. It is a patriotic decor video. I haven't done patriotic decor in quite some time, and I really love it. So this year for our summer decor, I'm doing patriotic decor out front, and so everything that I'm making today is actually just going out front. So I had to think about that when I was using glue, because FYI, in Arizona it gets really hot, and if you use hot glue to put things together, it melts and your projects go and they fall apart. So don't use hot glue if you live in a hot state, is what I'm saying. Anyway, super excited to share this with you guys, and I really hope that you enjoy it. So let's go ahead and jump into this project. Okay guys, DIY number one, we're making a wreath. So first thing we're gonna do, I saw this on, oh my gosh, Jennifer from A Little Bit of Common Crazy. There it is. Sorry. She had a brilliant idea of taking these like grapevine type wreaths that you get from the Dollar Tree and combining them together to make a thicker, more substantial wreath for a much cheaper price than you can buy this anywhere else. I thought maybe I was going to use 4 of them, but I ended up only using 3 wreaths, so this is $3 for this nice, hefty, thick wreath that we're going to start with. And I love it because it's $3. I don't glue anything to this, so I can reuse this each season for a nice wreath for our front door. Anyway, so after taking all the string off of each one, you're just gonna lay them overlapping each other. You wanna kind of adjust it so that all of your, it's evenly spaced out, and then you just tie it back up. Super simple. Next, I'm gonna take this fabric. The red and white striped fabric I actually got from Amazon over a year ago, and I haven't used it yet. The blue fabric I got from Hobby Lobby, the burlap I got from Walmart. And we're literally just gonna cut strips of this fabric. You want them to be kind of thick. Obviously you can make this however you want, but I made mine kind of thick, not super thin strips for the red and white stripe and the blue fabric. I'm just basically tearing it. This of course had the little border on it that has all the words, so I took that off. And then once you get a nice long strip, all I'm doing is taking it, folding it in half, wrapping it around the wreath, and tying it in a knot on the side. Now, I do try not to be a perfectionist, but I wanted this to be tight enough since I'm not gluing anything. So I wanted to make sure it was going to stay in place and that the fabric was positioned the way that I liked it. So I just kind of played with it for a minute until I got it how I liked, and then I repeat the same process with the blue fabric. This blue fabric that I used from Hobby Lobby is actually a super stretchy type of fabric, like a jersey knit, I think is what it's called. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not great with fabrics, guys. But it's stretchy. So tying this one on was actually super easy. I was able to get it nice and tight and laying the way that I wanted it to so that it wouldn't move around. The burlap ribbon that I got from Walmart, I thought I was going to leave it as is, but it felt like it was just too thick for me, so I ended up cutting it in half and then cutting like the little ridge seam thing off of the end so that both sides of it would be frayed, and then from there I just wrapped it around and tied it on. Okay, so then I took the white burlap ribbon, and again, this one was way too thick for the way that I wanted it to look, so I cut just a tiny strip off of that ribbon and added that into the middle. Then I have this blue ribbon with white stars that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just cut off a length of that, tied it around the blue section to add kind of the stars in there, tied it in a knot on the same side. I really liked the seam that I cut off of the burlap, so I'm using that to tie all of the fabric pieces together on the side, and then I just tied like a simple shoestring bow, whatever you want to call it, just on the side there to combine all the fabric together. dovetailed the ends of my larger pieces of fabric. And then I have these little like star ornaments that came off of a Dollar Tree sign. They literally fell off of the sign. So I just grabbed them and tied them onto some twine and added those onto the side, and this wreath is pretty much done. Oh, no, I lied, guys. Okay, so then I took this Baby's Breath garland that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I went ahead and just pulled some pieces off and tucked those into the side to add a little bit of greenery to the wreath. I felt like that it just needed that final touch. Again, I didn't need any hot glue or anything like that. I just tucked it into the wreath, and now it's actually done. And I will show you guys the final reveal at the end of the video. Right now we're moving on to DIY number 2, which is a beaded garland. I'm sure you guys have seen like 100 of these, so I tried to make this one as quick as possible. First, I'm starting with some red paint, adding water, stirring that in. I threw 5 beads down into the red paint, swish it around, and then I let it sit for, honestly, it was probably about an hour. And then I repeated that same process with blue paint and water, and then also with white paint and water. And I did 5 of each color, so 15 beads total for this beaded garland. And I totally forgot to mention in the beginning that I gave this little round ornament wood medallion thing from Dollar Tree a coat of white paint on all sides. Just one coat, super simple. Now I'm taking these rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree. This is like the patriotic themed one, and it comes in gold. So what I'm doing is using the Constitution. There's a little part of the Constitution that's on there, and I just kind of placed that sporadically all over the place and didn't rub it on completely, so it would just be kind of like a background. Then I'm taking these black rub-on transfer letters and spelling out USA and just rubbing those on. And then the last piece I grabbed was the American flag in the gold rub-on transfer and added that on there. And then this rub-on transfers are awesome. I love them. They're amazing. The rest of this is pretty basic beaded garland. I strung the beads on, alternating colors onto a piece of jute twine. I tied that onto the USA medallion, made a little tassel on the end, and then I did add red and white striped ribbon and also the blue ribbon with white stars as a final touch. And I also distressed this with some antique wax. Okay, DIY number 3, and we're starting with this tin from Dollar Tree. I'm taking some painter's tape and making stripes. Originally, I was trying to use like a piece of tape to space them out, but you have to the tape is going to be closer together at the bottom than it is at the top, obviously, because the tin gets bigger. So just kind of eyeball it. You can use the tape as a guide, but eyeball it basically. So I'm going to do that all the way around the tin, and then I'm going to alternate painting red stripes, and in between the red stripes is going to be a blue stripe. After I removed the tape, I decided to take some white chalk paint and just kind of brush that over the twine at the top of the bucket just to tone it down, and then I used some antique wax to kind of just pounce it on and distress this a little bit. Once all paint is dry, I'm just stuffing some grocery bags and also the pool noodle down in there, sticking in some Dollar Tree florals and berries, and then I'm going to stick in the little truck yard stake that Dollar Tree had. You don't have to do this patriotic theme. You can totally do this in whatever colors you choose to decorate in, and it's the same concept. This little Dollar Tree truck yard stake does come in a red truck or a blue truck. I decided to go with the blue truck this time. Okay, DIY number 4 is going to be this bottle cap sign. Dollar Tree has out, apparently at some Dollar Trees, bottle caps that you can DIY. Mine doesn't have any yet, but I get these pie tins from Goodwill and they work just as well. So I'm painting just the center in a blue chalk paint from Waverly. I also was not worried about perfect coverage for this, and you'll see why in a little bit. I went ahead and took my white vinyl that I cut out with my Cricut and added it on before I finish anything else on the project. I really love making signs with song lyrics because then every time that I look at it, the song pops into my mind, and it just makes me happy to do that. So that's why I went with this one. Okay, so once I get my vinyl all transferred on, I'm going to go ahead and add this star cutout that I cut out again with my vinyl right in the middle here. I'm going to go ahead and use my red Waverly chalk paint. This color's lacquer. You can use whatever color you'd like, and I'm just going to paint the star. Again, I'm not looking for like perfect coverage because I want this to be a rustic piece. I did just have a tiny bit of bleeding on my red paint, so I went and fixed that with my blue paint. So here's where it starts getting really fun. So I'm going to take some Elephant Waverly chalk paint. This is kind of like a dark gray, and a sponge brush, and I'm just going to start dabbing that all around the edges, around the blue paint, right on the rim there. I'm going to do this on the sides of the tin, anywhere that you're going to see it, because this is going to be hanging up. So you don't have to cover everything. You're not looking for complete coverage. This is very splotchy, tappy type motion. I'm sorry about going off camera right here, guys, but I'm just continuing the tapping motion all around the edges so that basically what you're doing is taking down some of the shine on this to make it look like it's worn and aged. I'm going to repeat this process with the same sponge brush and a little bit of ink chalk paint, which is black, and then also silver, and you're just layering those on. Now I'm taking these red lights from Christmas time at Dollar Tree. I keep everything, and I'm going to position these so that the battery pack is on the back of it, and I'm using duct tape just to hold it in place, and then I'm going to kind of put a little dab of hot glue around the inside to add the lights where I want them to be. The only other thing I did show you guys on here was that I did take some antique wax as well as some brown paint and just kind of distress the sign a little bit, and then it's done. Okay, DIY number 5 is a ribbon lantern. Now this probably is the easiest one, you guys. So I got this cute little light, fairy light lantern-y thing from Dollar Tree, and I went with gold and this gold basket. Now all I did was remove the little hanger piece from the light and wrapped it around the bottom of the basket and plugged it back in. Hopefully that makes sense. You guys can see what I'm doing. Next, what I did was cut out a bunch of strips of ribbon, some string, just various different colors. Once I got them to the length that I wanted, I'm just gonna start wrapping them around the rim of the basket. So this will become the bottom of our little lantern, but it's the top rim of the basket. Hopefully that makes sense. To keep the light in place so it's not flopping all over, I just used some of my red and white striped baker's twine and tied it on each end, securing it in place with just bows on the between the basket and the lantern. Again, I hope you can see what I'm doing and that makes sense. Once you get the desired amount of ribbon on here, you're done. Okay, DIY number 6 is going to be a galvanized star. This one's going to be a little bit backwards. So we're taking this star from Dollar Tree and some words that I cut out with my Cricut on white vinyl, and we're putting the vinyl on first before we do anything else. Once the vinyl is on, I'm going in with my dark gray Elephant chalk paint by Waverly, and I'm using just a paper towel and I'm just dabbing the paint on there. Again, not looking for perfect coverage. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before, where we alternate with the gray, the silver, a little bit of black, some antique wax, and then I also went in with burnt umber around the edges and just sporadically here and there to kind of give it that rust sort of look. Now you can do as much or as little of this technique as you would like. You can even just paint it a solid color if you would prefer to do that. But this is just kind of a reverse way of doing a little sign here. So once we get all the paint the way that I wanted it, then I go ahead and start taking off the vinyl letters. At first I was a little bit nervous, but I honestly could not be happier with how this turned out. I was afraid you wouldn't really be able to see the words because it kind of was galvanized already, and I was just darkening that galvanized effect, but I really love how this turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. Okay, DIY number 7 is going to be a chalkboard type sign. So I took this foam board from Dollar Tree and this old wood frame that we've had on hand. I use it for various different decorating pieces, but I'm just tracing out the inside of the frame so that I can see how big of a piece I need before I cut that out. And I did cut it just slightly larger than the tracing so that we would have an easy way to attach it. Next, I'm taking, this is a matte black acrylic paint, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint over the entire foam board piece. Now, I will tell you, when you paint foam board, it tends to want to curl. So I would recommend laying this on a very flat surface, but if it does curl on you, what I ended up doing with mine was just kind of bending it to get it back into the right position. I didn't get any video of it, but I did just dry brush some white paint over this once it was dry, and then added my vinyl that I cut out with my Cricut. You can make this project however you want. I chose foam board because I use this wood picture frame for a lot of different things, so I wanted to make it something that was removable so that I wasn't creating a permanent project for this frame. Anyway, once I got my vinyl lettering positioned on there, I'm taking this little wood Decorate Your Own United States that you can get from Dollar Tree, and I'm just sanding down the front of it to fade out those black lines just a little bit before I go in with my antique wax and give it a coat of the antique wax, just wiping off the excess with a paper towel. Now, this wasn't part of my original plan, but I thought of it on the fly and went with it, and I'm so happy I did. I took my red chalk paint and I just painted the state of Arizona, which is where we live, just to signify that we love our state. Then I hot glued this onto the foam board underneath my lettering. I did go in and distress around the edges a little bit. Then I just laid this inside of my wood frame, duct taped it so that it wouldn't be permanent, and that's pretty much the end of this project. And I love this, guys, because it's a perfect example of how you can just use minimal supplies to create a really cute piece. Okay guys, DIY number 8 is going to be this milk bottle decor. So I'm just starting off by giving it a coat of white chalk paint by Rust-Oleum. And I did do 2 coats on this. There were a couple of parts that it didn't stick completely, but I was okay with that because I wanted to have a distressed look in the end. And I tell you what, guys, I finally invested in a heat gun for drying paint on my projects to speed up the process, and I would highly recommend it. I smashed out pretty much all of these projects in one day because I didn't have to wait for my paint to dry. So now I'm taking, again, some star cutouts that I had cut out some stars on my Cricut. So this is just the leftover bits, and I'm sticking those into position sporadically around the container, trying to get the most secure placement so that I wouldn't have a lot of paint bleeding. And then I went in with my blue chalk paint, and my brush was a little bit wet, which I actually liked how this turned out. So I painted with my blue chalk paint of the stars, and again, wasn't looking for full coverage. So once I started peeling back the vinyl, it was kind of peeling up the chalk paint, the white chalk paint, and I really liked how that looked. So I was taking spare pieces of my vinyl and just kind of sticking it in random places to get that peeled sort of look, and then I went in with a little bit of sandpaper and roughed it up as well. Once I got it how I wanted it, I just took some of my red and white baker's twine and wrapped it around a couple of times, tied a knot, and that's all I did to the bottle itself. Then I started adding these. So these are those foam stars that you get in the pack at Dollar Tree. So I took some twigs, poked a little hole in the bottom of the stars that I wanted to use, added just a little bead of hot glue and then stuck them in the stick, and then I used these as embellishments inside of my milk jug. And this is such an easy project, guys. Honestly, you can embellish with such little things. Other than the foam stars, I had all of this stuff on hand already, so it was kind of a trash to treasure project. Okay, DIY number 9 is a Patriotic Pillow. Now this one, if you guys are still here, thank you so much for sticking with me. I know this is a long video. So I have this canvas bag that I got from the Target dollar spot last summer. But you could totally do this on anything. I cut out with some heat transfer vinyl the lyrics, part of the lyrics of the song Chicken Fried by the Zac Brown Band. I love this song, but all I did was cut it out with my heat transfer vinyl, use my easy press on recommended settings to go ahead and do this. Now I will say that it wasn't quite sticking very well to the canvas bag for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because this is an old bag, I'm not sure, but I did have to do it a couple of times and it ended up causing a little bit of discoloration, but I'm still happy with how this turned out, and it's a quick project that amps up your decor. And now for the final reveal.
that's it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to give my video a big thumbs up. If you're new here, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and the notification bell next to it so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. I am trying to stay on track with these as much as humanly possible now that our life is somewhat leveling out. It's not really. I'm just pretending that it is. Anyway, thanks guys. Until next time, I'll be seeing you. Hold still. This is so bad. Maybe if I get it like right on my eyeball. I am from the future. Okay. Weird. I don't know why I did that like weird thing. There's something on my glasses and it's like catching the light and driving me bonkers. Don't know what's happening here. Okay. Okay. Anyway. If you're wondering if I just didn't curl the back of my hair at all, the answer is yes. I did not do that because nobody's gonna see it, right? Oh man. Look, you guys are lucky I did my hair and put makeup on. That's all I'm saying about that. Anyway. Ew. Need to start lifting weights. Okay, guys. Cover up my little fat pockets. Anyway. Big hug. Air hug. High five. All the things.